Welcome to episode 217 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer Devon Shepard. He's a comedian and television writer. He's written on a number of popular TV shows over the years, including Weeds, Mad TV, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and many, many more. We have a wide-ranging talk. We spend quite a bit of the time digging into the early days of his career and really breaking down exactly how he was able to break in. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on the blog or in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 217. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and query letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. Quick few words about what I'm working on. On the writing front, the kids TV show that I've been talking about the last few months, I've been working on that. I just finished the first draft of episode number 4. So I'll be presenting those pages to my writers group tomorrow, and I'll get some notes inevitably from the producers, and then I'll spend a little time polishing up that episode and probably go back and do some rewriting on the other episodes as well. But overall, I'm in pretty good shape. So I'm starting to wind that down. It's really now up to the producers to go out and get the financing all worked out and then figure out when and if they're going to shoot this thing. So have my fingers crossed on that. I'm starting to think about what I'm going to do next. Haven't quite figured that out. I did really enjoy the process with The Pinch, so I'm considering maybe another film like that. But it is a ton of work, so I've got to really make sure I have the time and energy to devote to it. But we'll see. But the bottom line is I'm winding down on this TV show and starting to look around for something else. So that's what I'm working on. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing comedian and writer Devon Shepard. Here is the interview. Welcome, Devon, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thank you for having me, man. This is dope.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
You know, it was ironic because I don't want to do the whole long story, but it's kind of it's becoming a little bit of a one of those tales around Hollywood because I got discovered in a barbershop, and by Rob Edwards, who at that time, you know, Rob Edwards wrote his last thing he wrote was Princess and the Frog for Disney, which was nominated for an Oscar. Rob was doing a show called Out All Night, and at that time I was a PA/struggling comedian. There was a comedy theater literally around the corner from the barbershop, which was owned by my best friend. So when I get off work, I would go there, you sit in a chair, I give you some shit, I fuck with you, take whatever I got, go around and do my little week, 2 minutes, 3 minutes at the Comedy Theater, which was hosted by Robin Harris, and anybody that thought they were funny and black had to go through there. It was like the Rutgers of comedy at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I was just happy to get my 2 minutes. And Rob Edwards came in. And Rob Edwards at the time, this was like almost 91. I had just graduated college. And he would wear, this is back when writers wore Oxford, like they wore Oxford pants and penny loafers and shit and button ups and so like they looked like Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Oh, and that was like, because everyone was from either the Harvard Lampoon or from some East Coast college, and they was very persnickety and conservative, highbrow, and here I am. So he brings his square ass in Pittsburgh, Lower show, and Will Smith's cousin Kenny Snyder. I guess Rob wanted the hood experience and get a haircut in the hood, so they took him to the barbershop that I happened to be in. So this square sits in my chair, and you know, I love Rob. Rob doesn't get mad when I tell the story, but the older I get, the more I tell you I feel bad for him. But he was mad corny. I ate his ass up. And he, thought I was really funny and said, you should come write for this new show that I have called Out All Night. And it was starring Patti LaBelle, Morris Chestnut, and Dwayne Martin. Vivica Fox was also in it. And I was like, I don't want to write. I said, I'm going to stand up. If I don't do stand-up, I'm going to either, direct. Because I went to school for post and editing and that sort. So that's really where my head was at. Mm-hmm. But, I was also I fancied myself pretty funny. Everybody's trying to be Martin at that time. So I thought I was too. So I had my focus on either stand-up or direct the post. And he said, you're really funny. He said, at this time, there wasn't a lot of people of color or African-American writers or women writers, really, at that time, which is ironic because two of my heroes are female writers. But he said, you should come write. And so I did the math. There's a million brothers telling jokes. There's no brothers writing. So let me give this a shot. Mm-hmm. And he told me to write a spec script. And I had no idea what a spec script was. He told me it was just a sample of your writing. So I said, okay. I wrote like 2 or 3 just random ass scenes of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. They ain't connected to nothing, just wrote them. Uh-huh. But he said inside of those 2 or 3, first of all, he said, this is not a spec script. And he lectured me on that. And then he said, but he saw that I understood humor. I knew how to write jokes. And based on those 3 scenes, this brother submitted me to be a writer's trainee on the show. And the other thing that helped me get it, I'm going to name drop a little bit. So Morris Chestnut and I were roommates in college.
Oh, okay.
And when I heard he was doing it, I said, oh, that's my guy. And they said, we're having trouble writing for him because he's not funny. He's not, classically funny. I know Mo is funny. It's just a different type of funny. I started telling him stories about us, our day-to-day stuff. And they was like, okay, you definitely got the job. And that's how my career started, man.
Okay. Perfect.
I'm a son of a bitch is what I am.
No, I think that's a great story. I mean, everybody has their own unique story, and I think it's fascinating just to hear yours. So it looks like just on IMDb, I'm looking at your IMDb page, and it looks like you got on as a story editor on Fresh Prince. Maybe you can kind of take us from that first job, how it led up to being a story editor on Fresh Prince. Did the first show did you just do a couple of pilots? Like, I didn't see that listed on your IMDb. Is that?
You know what's weird? I don't know why it's not listed on there. We did a whole season. We did 22 episodes. And there was a reason we didn't come back. I don't want to get into that because it had nothing to do with the ratings. We were actually pulling in close to 14.5, if I remember, which would be a fucking gigantic hit today. Mm-hmm. We were doing it on a regular basis, and we were still ranked in the lower part of the show. We was top 25. But that experience was really cool. What was great was I had Morris Chestnut. You don't get this kind of support, I don't think, right out the gate. But I had Morris Chestnut, my boy, one of my best friends to this day, on the show. I became really good friends with Dwayne Martin and Vivica Fox. We would hang out and everything. So there was that support there. Then there was Al Heyman, who I knew from, Al Heyman is probably one of the biggest concert promoters out there, independent concert promoters out there. He used to do things like the Fresh Fest, the Budweiser Super Fest, and Luther Vandross, any black artist that was really big, he had his hand in. Elton John, he knew. And so I made a really good connection with him and really established a great relationship with him. And then Andy and Sue Borowitz could not have been better people. I talk to Sue to this day. That's my second mom. I call her the hip hop mom. That's my mom. So my first experience, man, was just an extremely supportive experience, As a writer's trainee, I wrote 2 scripts, which was unheard of. They gave me 2 scripts. And then they bumped me up to staff writer right after Christmas. And I was also doing warm-up on the show. And I was just like a kid in a candy store. And it couldn't have been a better experience for me on that first one. So when the show was canceled, I didn't really... I'm still new to TV. I don't really understand, like, okay, it's canceled. What does that mean? What happens to me? Like, do I just go to the barbershop? Like, is this it?
Yeah.
And I didn't even have an agent there. And Al Heyman pulled me to the side and said, don't get one. He said, because they're going to hire you over at Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So I knew we were getting canceled. The day we got canceled, the same day I got hired at Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, because Andy and Sue Borwitz and NBC Gary Considine, who was executive in charge over the show, they all saw how I worked and liked my work ethic, and I had a good sort of reputation coming off that show. So, and they needed, Benny Richburg, who ended up being another one of my best friends. He's actually doing the Foxy Brown movie. They are pitching that right now with Pam Grier. He left to go do Martin, to go run Martin. So it left a space, and it was like, oh, we got the perfect guy. This 21 dude, come on in here. So now I'm at Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Okay.
And and I remember meeting Will at the, and I was a little bit of a thug. I remember I went to meet them at the hotel, this big hotel in Beverly Hills. Now it'll come to me. Four Seasons. Okay. Yeah. And so I don't know shit about the Four Seasons. I'm a hood dude. I show up, my hair braided. I got on my corduroy slippers, and I'm strolling in this fancy restaurant. Will sees me and falls out laughing and goes, oh, he's real LA. I love him already. And so to this day, Will and I are still tight. We just sat and just talked about what he wanted to do and how I saw the show. And he and Benny Medina were both at the meeting. They blessed me, and that really set me off in terms of my writing career, because I did really well over there as well. So that's how my beginnings happened, man. And it was interesting. It was interesting back then. I could tell you this: Fresh Prince of Bel-Air had 15 writers.
Wow.
It's a lot of people, and they only had, it was me, Harrison, and Kenny Snyder. They brought in Maya Williams later, so it was 4 writers out of the 15. But we, Gingy Cohan was there. That's how me and Gingy Cohan met. That's like it's my baby right there. That's my girl. But it was a really great experience because I got to meet somebody like Gingy, and we got to, she's Jewish, I'm Black. We would just sit and just have these really deep cultural conversations as I would teach her how to play dominoes. But there was also Eddie Gordeski, who created Mom on CBS. He's another good friend. He was very musically eclectic, so we would always vibe on music. So all of these experiences and conversations and relationships I developed between these two shows allowed me to open up my mind and think more broadly. That I already did, but you growing up in the hood, you can't talk to your homies about Culture Club. They don't understand that shit. And that's what I was. I was a huge Culture Club fan. I was a big Norman Lear guy. And then I became a gigantic John Hughes fan. John Hughes is probably, he and Norman Lear are the two people that got me interested in actually writing TV. Susan Harris is the one that made me go, I got to do this shit, because I love Golden Girls. I loved everything that she did. And from a female perspective, and I just was infatuated with her writing style. Even though I love Norman Lear was more socially conscious and was dealing with sort of the backdrops of the time, which gave me that sort of foundation. But then Susan Harris really just gave me the funny, like how to make funny characters without being socially or political, like Norman Lear was. So, and then Gingy Cohan is probably my biggest hero.
Okay. At what point did you get an agent through this process? Were you able to just jump from show to show without an agent, or did at some point you get an agent?
This is how I got an agent. Al Heyman told me, he said, don't worry, they'll come to you. And sure enough, it was like, they heard it was gold in them hills, and there's a black writer who's doing pretty well, and he doesn't have any representation. So everybody was coming up to the show, just wanting to meet me. And my first agent was Tim McNeil over at ICM. He got me. He understood me. He understood what I wanted to do, and he can't highly recommend it. So I was like, fuck it, But that was weird. I didn't even go to agent meetings. That's how crazy my story is. They came to me, And so my first 2 years in the game is probably, I would say pretty different than a lot of people's experience coming into it. I was just blessed to have the experience that I had and the way it happened.
Yeah. So I wonder if you can just now, all these years later, could you give us some advice? I mean, what do you see as the best path if someone's coming up, they want to break in as a TV writer? What would you recommend to them as just the best path to becoming a staff writer?
This is I'll be honest with you, this has always been the hardest because I did it the traditional way. So I look at, and I talk to other writers, they all get in their own, a lot of it is relationships. And the first thing I would honestly say to people who want to write, because I used to carry around, I would buy these boxes of books called the Screenwriter's Bible. And anytime I would meet anybody that said they want to write, I would pop the trunk open and I go, here's a book. And the funny thing is, most people would be like, man, I don't want to read no book. I don't know how to, And I said, no, you have to understand the tenets and the rules of writing. If you don't understand just those basic concepts, you can't even engage in this process. So I would tell people to write, and write what you feel, not write what you think other people want you to read. And we've all done it as new writers. I was a huge fan of certain writers, so of course my early writing sort of emulated some of those people's style. But I said, the reason why I say write, because then and only then you begin to establish your own voice. That's number one. Because once you establish your own voice, it's like a snowflake, right? You will stick out. When you go to submit your script is, more than likely is not going to read like anything else that they're reading in the pound. That's how you want to separate yourself. That's number one. I give you this perfect example. I can't say what the project is because unofficially we didn't book it, but we got a title to this movie. A network's going to turn into a TV show. And I remember the network approached me to write, and I was like, I was doing a Mary Jane movie. I said, I don't have time to really think about it because I wasn't sure what the movie was, how to do it as a show. But long story short, my wife and I came up with this idea, and we said, it was left of what I think anybody would have thought. And we just developed this pitch. And sure enough, I called, this all happened in a 24-hour period. I called the executive. I said, hey, I got an idea, kind of soft pitched on the phone. She said, I love it. Can you pitch it tomorrow? I was like, damn, okay. And then the next thing you know, we're pitching this show, and we knocked out the rest of the competition because our perspective was miles on the other end of the spectrum what other people were doing. So it separated us to the point they just stopped meeting with people. And so I say that to say, people, especially in this day and age, back in the day, they wanted to know if you can write like so-and-so because that's how you got staffing jobs. If you can write like, if you can emulate a script from Frasier, they're going to want that spec, because they want to know you can come on the show and write. Nowadays, everything is so wide open with so many platforms and so many opportunities and so many places trying to set their own identity and create their own brand. They're not looking for the traditional spec. They're looking for something that has somebody else's fingerprints on it, experience, that's these nuances that's left to anything we thought about, something outrageous, something different, something dark, something macabre. So that's number one. Number two is really relationships. I would suggest, because I never heard this work, somebody sending in a script to an agency and they call them back. That's very rare. I think working on a set any way you can will probably be your best bet, whether it's a PA, makeup guy. If you're picking up, whatever it is, a driver, whatever it is, find your way to a set, because then you'll have that direct connection and conversation. Because here's the thing about Hollywood that they're not going to tell you. Nobody fucking reads anymore.
Yeah.
That's the God's honest truth. So, and what I mean by that is, you used to have executives take home 15, 20 scripts a weekend. They mine through them, find the best, and find the writers. They don't do that shit no more. They go, hey, I got this show. I need a writer that can do this. And they'll call and ask. They say, hey, I have a writer. Writer comes in, he talks about it. And they may read your spec or may read a sample, or they just go, hey, they'll look at your credits and go, he's good enough, let's go. Because they're in such this high competitive market right now, finding material, finding product, people feel like that part of it is not necessary.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I want to go back on just one thing you said, because you hear this very often, is that, write something that's very distinct and that's in your voice, have a very clear and original voice. I wonder if there's some specific scripts, and maybe it's even a feature script or some pilot script for TV shows that you could point us to and say, I read these scripts, and those are scripts where the writers really had a distinct voice.
Oh, I can point to a few. I can start with Atlanta and move backwards. Atlanta is nothing like you've ever read before. It's nothing you've ever seen before. And its beauty is its simplicity. It's just it's a peek into a cultural window of the South that we haven't seen before. And that's what I mean. Like, I'll tell you this, FX bought it, and I quote, they said, "We have no idea what we bought." But it was interesting. You go to Gingy with Weeds, or Orange is the New Black. You go to Breaking Bad. Chemistry teacher becomes a meth dealer. And you're watching a guy go from a good guy to a villain, which is usually the opposite in most of your character development. You usually have your character start in a dark place, hopefully build them to a more enlightened and better place. But this actually went backwards. One of my favorite movies to this day was two movies. It's going to be very silly when I say this. It's Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because Ferris never changes through the whole movie, which broke, typical character development rules. Your character is supposed to grow at the end of the film. Well, Ferris doesn't grow with the shit. People around him are changed by him. And then, and I like a lot of great movies. Don't judge me when I say this, but Adventures in Babysitting. And I'm gonna tell you why I love that movie. That's when I learned about purposeful writing. They don't set up anything they do not pay off in that movie. Not one thing. I don't care how small it is, how big it is. And so when you look at those kind of movies, those are the movies you go, wow, that's different. Why didn't I think of that? That's interesting. I love Baby Driver, for example. I thought Baby Driver was incredible. It's a different type. Anything that's just different and unique, Memento. I'm a big, Chris fan anyway, but I like everything he done from Memento to the Batman's trilogy. It's just how he's able to take it and give it his own fingerprint, his own spin. That's what we're looking for. We're looking at how you see the world, not how you think we want you to see the world. What is the popular opinion versus the new or maybe the unpopular opinion of a story? And telling it from that perspective, and telling it from your heart, not your head. That's the other thing. You got to tell the story from your heart. The head is how you express the story. The heart is where it lives and breathes. So it's how you see something. If I see something about race, or I see something about a subject matter that I have a unique, where I feel like hasn't been discussed, let me write that and see what happens. And people are looking for things like that right now. Something that's going to shock you out of this, I think, malaise that we're in, especially with Trump. I think there's so much noise out there, so much darkness. People are looking for light. They're looking for something different, and a different perspective, and maybe a different solution. I don't know. But just be different is what I tell people.
Is anybody, and is it useful these days to write a spec of an existing show as part of your sort of repertoire of writing samples, or is it just all originals, you'd say?
I think not anymore. It's about originality, because inside of that originality, I might find a show there. So it's a double sword, in the sense that I'll get a spec and a sample of your writing, but I may also get free development in the sense of, wow, this kid wrote this spec, and not only is it good, I think we should shoot it. So that's why I say write the thing that you've always wanted to write, and that inspires you. But I tell people, if you're going to take the time to do that, learn the craft, learn the structure, learn how to do character development, learn how to write dialogue, the biggest thing is learn how to rewrite. Like you don't start writing till you rewrite. I'm pretty sure you've heard that a number of times. That's where the writing takes place, is in the rewrite. The first draft is to get the shit out your system so you don't go crazy. Then you go back, and then if you're honest with yourself and you've done your work in terms of understanding, how to write a script, you'll know what sucks and know what's good. You got to be your worst critic. When I did Mad TV, the best lesson I learned there was, because you had to go in this room and pitch shit, and I don't like to be racing into a lot of shit, but me and Aries, we the only black guys there, so you couldn't go in there half-assed. Like, if we were gonna fight for something, we had to believe in this thing. And there was times we sat in the room and go, I don't think this shit's worth fighting for. This actually kind of sucks. And so you have to learn that about yourself. What, like, instinctually go, because everything you write is not good. Every joke you tell ain't funny. Every story you have is not interesting. So you have to be smart enough and honest enough with yourself to kind of look back at some things and go, ooh, shit, let me rewrite that because that's not good. Don't think everything you write the first time because you finished it means it's good. It's not good if you finished.
Yeah, sound advice. I get a lot of emails from novice writers who have an original idea. You know, they've written up a pilot for a series, and they're asking, well, how can I get this, you know, pitched to a network? And my advice is always, you know, I don't even know if there's any examples of a complete novice getting a show on an air. And even if you go like, even as there's a ton more platforms like Netflix and Hulu, if you look at the people that are creating those shows, I mean, pretty much all of them have some pedigree in television. And so what is your advice for that? First off, is that something that you've seen? Have you heard of someone who's a complete novice? They've got an original idea and it actually made it to production. And what do you recommend to somebody like that?
I believe it has happened. Rarely, though. And I mean that in every sense of the word of what it really means. I think the tough thing now is all this town is about relationships, right? You damn near don't need an agent, to be 100% honest with you. If you make the right connection with the right people, you can get that opportunity. It's the hustle has changed. The way to get in has changed, and that's because of a number of things. You got multiple platforms. You have YouTube and Hulu and all these other things that you can actually upload and shoot your own stuff now. They got consumer-friendly cameras and editing equipment. There's nothing stopping people. So for me, the people that are starting to get more looks than anything else, because you got to understand this too, Hollywood is lazy. So, you know, I'll use Issa Rae as an example. Issa Rae had Awkward Black Girl on HBO, online for a number of years. I think it was 2 or 3 years. And she just wrote something about, again, how she felt being an awkward black girl. I'm not the typical black girl that you see. I live in the hood. I have a different experience and perspective. So she wrote that, which became like an interesting character. They looked at her views and said, hey, we got to bring this girl in. And she knew nothing. She'll tell you all day long. She don't know shit about TV, production. She learned all of that on the fly. Which is why they had to bring a showrunner in to run her show over at Insecure. But that's an example of how somebody from this generation, millennial generation, has gotten on. Everything is by likes, be followers now. That doesn't help writers per se, because you can't just post your script and then hope people like it. People steal it if it's good. I mean, but they have the blacklist. They have all of those things that you can submit for, and that's another option to do that. Now, I've seen writers who are novice make the blacklist and get agents from that, or some have even gotten their movies produced. Not all get their movies produced, but most have gotten agents and opportunities to write other things. So the blacklist, if it's good enough, submit to the blacklist. There's other little and I don't have them all at my fingertips, but there's other like screenwriting links and labs that you can submit your stuff to that allow you that opportunity for. And if they're, and I would research it because like the blacklist has a direct connection to these agencies, so they're constantly looking at the blacklist and who made it and that sort of thing. So find those links and submit there as well if you can. Get on a lot. Swallow your pride. I did it for 2 or 3 years. I was a PA. I was a runner. I was all of those things. Don't be afraid to do that because that's another way you get close proximity of the people who are in charge. You get to understand how it works from the inside, and then you can try to figure out how best it you can use that to your benefit. So that's that. I mean, it sounds sort of broad, and I wish it was more specific, but I'd be lying to you if I said you do this, and that's going to get you in. That's not how it works.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. Let's talk about your film, 2 Minutes of Fame. Maybe you can just tell us what that's all about real quick.
2 Minutes of Fame is it's funny we're talking about this. It's about a stand-up comic played by Jay Farrell, who's an internet comic. And when I was talking to Jeff Flanagan, who brought the idea to me for his brand of this comedy tour that he does, he was just saying how he would get these YouTube comics, and they're funny in 30-second, or 1 minute, bites. But when you get them on stage, he said they don't have 2 minutes to fill. And so we started just talking about, and I've always had this thing about millennials. They're the first push button generation. There's genius in their generation, and there's also laziness, because when you have information that's just available to you, you don't have to actually physically get up and pursue it or go look for it. It creates a sort of a malaise and a laziness to finding the information. But at the same time, what they've done with the internet, I think, is pretty fucking genius. And old people need to get together and get on this. 2 Minutes of Fame is about an internet comic who does these viral videos. He picks a beef with, let's say, like an Eddie Murphy type character played by Cat Williams, a comic who used to be, one of the top echelons of comedians, but he's gone into the family film route. You can tell he's just grabbing these paydays, and he sort of lost his comedic mojo. And it's about when this comedy competition reaches out to Jay Farrell's character and says, hey, you need to come to LA. We want to put you on this competition because you're funny, and your video had over 1 million hits on it. Again, that's what brings him in, not even doing the homework. If it's funny or not, he has 1 million hits. They bring him in. And he goes through the competition barely getting by. And he's doing comedy from this very superficial, silly place. And what ultimately ends up happening is he runs into the Cat Williams character, and they end up striking up a mentorship. And the guy is telling him, if you want to be funny, you got to dig deeper. So it becomes this relationship, unbeknownst to Jay Farrell's character, that Cat Williams is slowly sabotaging him. But they get something from each other. Cat learns. He gets infused with revigorated energy to go back on stage because of this guy's pushing him to get back on stage and challenging him in a way that shook him and woke him up, which is what he needed. And Jay Farrell's character is learning the work ethic and how to dig deeper and how to become. There's a difference between a comic and a comedian, and he wants to be a comedian. And so in order to be a comedian, he has to dig deeper. So he learns that lesson from each other, and that's sort of the show. That's sort of the movie in a nutshell. It's
perfect. And what's the status of that? Do you know when it's going to be finished?
It's done. We finished shooting it. I'm told it's going to be released sometime this year in September.
Okay.
2 Minutes of Fame. Look out for it.
Perfect. So I just always like to wrap up the interviews by asking the guests how people can kind of keep up with what you're doing. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anything you're comfortable sharing. Just tell us that now, and I'll round all that stuff up for the show notes.
I'm Devon_Shepard on Twitter. What else? At Devon Shepard on Twitter. Same thing with my Facebook. Instagram, I'm Devon_Shepard on Instagram. And I'm always talking shit and being political.
Perfect.
So check me out.
Perfect. I look forward to following you. Devon, thanks for coming on and talking to this fascinating interview. I don't know a lot about TV writing, so it was great having you on. I get a lot of questions about it, so I know this is going to give people a lot of great information.
I hope so. I hope it was helpful. Yeah, right. That's my final message to everybody.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
yes.
Perfect. You take care. I really appreciate it.
Actually, I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Talk to you later.
You got it. Bye.
Just want to mention a new service that I recently launched at Selling Your Screenplay. I've built the SYS Select Screenplay database. Screenwriters can upload their screenplays along with logline, synopsis, and other pertinent information like budget and genre. And then producers can search through the database, hopefully find a screenplay they like, option it, and hopefully eventually produce it. I'm adding features to this program every day, so ultimately it will be the main hub for all the SYS Select services. If you're a member of SYS Select already, you should have already received your information. If you haven't, please let me know so I can get that to you. I've already got dozens of producers in the system looking for screenplays. To learn more about this, just go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing filmmaking brothers, screenwriter Alston Ramsey and his directing brother, Julius Ramsey. They just did a cool high-concept thriller called Midnighters, and we talked through that process of how they got that film produced. And I'll just give you a hint. They just went out and made things happen for themselves. So it's another great story of two guys just writing a script and then going out there, raising money, and producing a film. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. To wrap things up, I just want to touch on a few things from today's interview with Devon. I would highly encourage you to check out Devon's IMDb page so you can get a real sense of what he's done over the last couple of decades. Again, he's got a real good track record working on a lot of big TV shows. It's amazing to me after talking to him what he's able to do all before he got an agent. I think so many writers have this misconception that the first thing you need to do is get an agent, and then that leads to your first big break. And so often it's the other way around. Getting some work as a screenwriter, as a TV writer, often will lead you to your first agent. So don't get too caught up in trying to find an agent if you're just starting out on this journey. I think his advice, just trying to get on set and be around people who are making things happen, is spot on. I've talked about this often on the podcast. About the time I published episode number 75 of the SYS podcast, I wrote a blog post basically where I went back and looked at the first 75 guests on the podcast and just made a chart on how they broke into the business. I will link to it in the show notes if you haven't already looked at that. But far and away, the biggest way people broke in was networking, and specifically working in the industry. They got a low-level job working in the industry. So if you can afford to do that, that's definitely the sort of the try and true way of getting into the business. But really, if you listen to what Devon is saying, his advice at the heart is very, very similar. I mean, you don't necessarily have to take a low-level job in the business to be around these people, but you do need to get around these people. In his case, hanging out at a barbershop, doing stand-up comedy. He was meeting other writers. He was meeting other producers. I mean, again, that's getting into the business. It's getting around these people that are all making things happen, and potentially, you know, they might be able to hire you. They might be able to help you. And likewise, I'm sure goes the other way. As you move on in your career, you'll help other people, and then those people, maybe they would leapfrog ahead of you in their careers, and then they could come back and help you. So the more people you know, just the more chance you have of getting work, getting opportunities, learning the business. All of that is great stuff. As I said, the sort of the tried and true is getting that low-level job, but Devon just presented a great case for doing stand-up comedy, you know, hanging out with those people, becoming friends with, you know, the people that are in the business, already working in the business, and then again, opportunities can open up for you. And at the heart of a lot of the advice that I give out, it's very, very similar. Going out, writing and producing a short film or even a feature film, it's very similar. Sort of at the heart of that advice is very similar advice. You're going out there, you're doing something, and then you're meeting other people. If you write and produce your own short film or your own feature film, as you make that film, you'll meet a ton of local actors, local crew people. These are all people you can network with, become friends with, get to know. And again, all of your careers you can help each other out, and all of your careers can advance together. You can enter this short film or this feature film in a film festival. Potentially you can go and meet other like-minded filmmakers. Again, it's another way just to network. Even if you don't even have a film, you can still go to film festivals. You can still go to these sorts of networking opportunities. So again, make that part of your life, part of your schedule. See if you can find ways to get to local festivals, meet local filmmakers. Even if you're not producing your own films, it's another just simple, easy way to get out there and meet people. You can send your film. Again, if you write and produce a short film, you can start to send it to distributors. You can send it to other producers. And again, these are going to be conversations. Even if you're pitching a feature film, if you have a really well-written, really well-produced short film, you can include that link in your pitch to producers. It's another conversation starter, just another way to get that conversation going, network with people, and show people what you can do, what you're writing, what it can actually look like when it's produced. So again, I think the heart of Devon's advice, I think the heart of my own advice is just getting out there and meeting people. Obviously, you need to spend a lot of time writing and working on your craft, watching movies, reading scripts, and a ton of just writing new material, because that's ultimately really the base to all of this, is that new material you're writing, is that, you know, getting better as a writer. But there's that whole other aspect, the networking, the getting out there. And I think a lot of people, I mean, Devon comes at this from a stand-up comedian background, so he is probably by nature more outgoing and personable than a lot of writers, and I'm sort of in that category of writer who just likes to be by themselves and write and that kind of thing. So you might have to get out of your comfort zone. For a stand-up comedian, you know, going out and networking probably isn't as far outside his comfort zone. But as writers, we have to do that too. I mean, that's part of the gig, is just meeting people. No one in the film business is an island. No one can do this on their own. It's a very collaborative process. The sooner you get out there, the more people you meet, the better off you're going to be. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.